If you're an existing subscriber, hello and welcome back. If you're new to my channel, hello, welcome, and why not hit subscribe now? I'm your host, Alicia Vittoria Keane, and I've been interviewing inspirational people and businesses, finding out how and why they inspire others. This week, I interviewed poet and presenter Chuck the Poet. Here's how it went. Hello and welcome to my channel. To begin with, if you could just introduce who are you and what do you do?
Hello, good evening. I am Chuck the Poet, a famous, world-renowned poet, probably, and radio DJ, and just gadabout town, really.
Oh, really? I like the last bit. So, poetry, like that is something that not many people do these days as such, but you were in a band beforehand. How has that transition been for you?
Right, so that goes back into the annals of history. BS3704, Corby's most successful band, at one point played 3 dates in 3 days over the Christmas period of, I think, 1984, might have been 1986. BS3704 with a 2-piece band. Robin was the guitarist, I was the singer. We were called BS3704 because that was the British standard manufacturing number for the rubber condom. And at the time, everything on the news and everything in the newspapers, everything that was forced down your throat, quite frankly, was about AIDS. And we were an anti-AIDS band. We didn't want AIDS. Nobody wanted AIDS. Nobody still doesn't want AIDS. But that's what we were trying to project with that music. And we had lots of songs that were kind of in relation to that kind of theme. So, but Robin left. He went to Swansea. He's still there. Hi, Robin. And Chuck the Poet was born based on the fact that he used to call me Chuck, because that is my name. And I was on my own, and therefore poetry and Chuck the Poet, it's like a throwaway thing. So that's where it all came down to. But it started, Chuck the Poet, and this is the interesting fact, started in Kettering at Dexter's, underneath the railway station, a small intimate bar that used to put bands on. So bands like a Sugar House and the Dance Bureau and Penelope Tree, and there's lots of bands that went down there and played down there because it was quite a tight, intimate space. Ended up on a talent night, and I didn't win it. I came third, but it was enough to project me into this small-time poet that used to go on generally before bands in the area. If anybody was playing any band music in the area, I would jump on and advertise them and support them and generally be the MC for those gigs. And at that point, I was also working on Northamptonshire 96. That's how long ago it was, when they had a local show that they used to play lots of local music on called The Biz. And I took over the running of that 6 months, and lots of bands came and gave me tapes, and we played them on the radio. It was great. Good times.
That's really cool. That is really cool, like how Chuck the Poet was born. Just with the band, I want to quickly speak about that first, if you don't mind.
Cool.
So normally when someone, I don't know, splits up with a band, they kind of don't really know what way to turn. Do they go on their own? Do they not do anything? And there can be like a little bit of a transition period. Why poetry?
I think I needed a release. I needed something to get me back on a stage. And to still annoys me. Guitarists tuning up. I know they need to. You wouldn't want to hear an untuned guitar, but Robin used to play with a 12-string. It was twice as bad as listening to the average guitarist tuning up, and I just had to escape. But I think also because the poetry, because the music we were writing was so themed and so observant of what was happening, it made it very easy for me to write poetry. Now, when you say poetry, the poetry I create and write is ultimately comedic poetry. It ends in a punchline. It's something that you come along with the journey, and all of a sudden I'll hit you with a punchline and you'll go, oh, that's funny, thank you very much, cheers.
Okay.
So it's comedy in verse.
Okay. So can we have a bit of an example then?
Oh yeah, okay then. Well, from the first book, Beer, Bread and Briskets. That's Beer, Bread and Biscuits. People do ask, why did you call your first book Beer, Bread and Biscuits? Today I can't say it very well. And ultimately because I'm a vegetarian, and when I go to the shops, it's usually the first 3 things I put on my shopping list. And they also say to me, but you don't look like a vegetarian. And it's true. But if you eat a lot of beer, bread and biscuits, you tend to get a bit porky. So here's one, they're all quite short. They're all quite short, apart from the longer ones. Where can we go to? Oh yes, skinny dipping. I know it's November and we're getting into the winter months, but this is maybe something you shouldn't do. Skinny dipping. In freezing conditions, it's ever so bold to go skinny dipping in a river that's cold. You could catch a sneeze or a terrible cough. Your extremities freeze and might even fall off. That would be it.
Wow.
They're not long. They're not big. They're not clever. But as I say, that was from the first book, but that was quite an old one that was written a long time ago. There were others that were kind of longer, that were as aged, but kind of, a different kind of poem, to what people think and imagine poetry should be. What you're taught in school is not particularly the best poetry, but it's on the syllabus because it has lots of functionality to it and lots of kind of reason why we should be understanding that kind of use of language, that kind of meter, that kind of rhythm when we're using poetry and words in motion. So yes, it's got all that, but it's generally got a punchline or a point to the end, a snippy point, or at least you're taken somewhere on a journey.
Okay. Do you think poetry is something that, as like the world is moving as such and going with the times, something that will end up getting lost? Or do you think there's people there like you who will keep it alive?
I think poetry is on a bit of a zeitgeist at the moment. There are so many places where people who are writers, people that want to write, they might not want to perform, but they want to write. And there's lots of venues and events and being held nationally and locally where poets can get up on a stage. They don't have to put on a whole gig for themselves. This is a little bit kind of self-indulgent, really, but you can get up there for 5-10 minutes. You can do 1 or 2 poems, or just let your feelings go. I mean, lots of people do generally write poetry about themselves. I don't tend to do that because I'm really not that interesting. But people do that, and they do want to get their feelings out. And whilst there's always the written word, people will always want, I think, to express themselves. But there's a great one in Kettering. It happens at the back of the Old Three Cocks in Kettering, called Run Your Tongue. That's been going 5 and a bit years now, and it's a monthly meeting. And all through this kind of period of COVID, it's gone online and got more people involved because they've been coming in, they've seen it online and they've joined in, and they've come from all over the country. So there's always going to be writers, there's always going to be people who want to express themselves, and I think that will never change.
So why do you think it is that poetry is seen as being dull, being a little bit boring? Because it's not.
I think it's possibly down to some of the ways it's been taught to children at school. They don't generally go for the funny kind of poetry. Spike Milligan used to write some very, very funny poetry, but you wouldn't find him particularly in the school curriculum. John Hegley, another very famous poet, but writes lots of funny things. I think you'll find a poem still in the Guardian every week from John Hegley, but it's not the kind of thing that academics want kids to be learning or for them to be teaching. Because if you're a straight-laced English teacher, the last thing you want to do is try and perform in front of your kids a funny poem, because if it goes wrong, you don't particularly look well. But there's poetry everywhere, and I think if you can find the right kind of poem that you want to hear or want to enjoy, I think that's always going to be a great way forward. And I think you know, there are lots of different poems out there, and different ways of performing. I mean, some of the best performance poets are when you come to John Cooper Clarke or Luke Wright, and they are completely different to the kind of things that you would have been taught in a stuffy classroom at school. Now, when I was at school, we didn't get poetry at all, really. But I think now, with more and more people trying to use words and the use of the English language, and obviously poetry isn't just English, you know, there's poems written in all languages all over the planet. So that's a good thing as well. But it's just being creative. And if you can find a way of getting your feelings out by using poetry, it's always a good thing. You know, we're in this time where lots of people talk about mindfulness and making sure that you feel good. This is another way of doing it. I see it as a kind of game where you make words fit into a kind of a rhythmic section, but and therefore becomes wordplay and kind of a bit of a quiz. But other people just want to express themselves and let things flow. So it's always a good thing.
Do you think then, in that case, that in schools they should teach the fun poetry to make sure that people still get involved and it keeps poetry alive?
I think, yeah, it's not a bad thing to do. I've been involved in several school projects where they've brought people in, but it always seems to be one of those things that happens after hours. Mainly because, you know, they can't always fit everything into the school curriculum, but there's always going to be that one teacher. There's always that one teacher you remember from school. As you get older, you think, oh, that teacher was great. One of my best teachers was a geography teacher. So there was no poetry in that. But I've also traveled the world, and then you see things and you learn things and you gather things and you understand things, and your knowledge widens and deepens, and you get to see things that maybe you wouldn't have ever seen before. But there's things happening on your doorstep as well as in the next town, into the next city, and the other side of the water. We're on an island after all, aren't we? So but there's always things to see out there, and once you've seen them, you kind of think, oh, I'd like to say something about that. And that's when you get this point where you think, oh, I could write something clever about that, or something nice about that, or something that makes people think, maybe. And then you're always passing it on, and things are growing, and in that big kind of snowbally kind of way, poetry continues.
So would you say then poetry, some people write songs, some people write poetry, some people write a story, it's all a way of expressing yourself and being creative in your writing as well?
Oh, I think so, yeah. If you've got that inside you, it sometimes needs to come out. You look at anybody who's picked up a guitar or just stood in front of other people, and anybody can do it. You go down the pub, dramatically the same. You don't tell the joke verbatim as you would every time you tell it. You add things in, but it's a little story. And if you can then make that story fit maybe into a rhyme, or into a kind of a pattern, or into some sort of metered kind of expression where you're rhyming and you're creating all the time and rolling with things, then all of a sudden you've written a poem. And that's the great thing. And you haven't done anything else than thought about it, thought about the words, and then created it. And all of a sudden you're there, and people are thinking, that's clever. That's what that's done there. That's quite a clever thing you thought. So anybody can do it.
I like it how you say anyone can do it. So if anyone can do it, what's the main thing that they need to bear in mind when they want to become a poet?
In the front of my first book that I used when I used to do poetry on stage, I had a little mantra, and it said, always smile, because that's how you get people on board. It's the same as if you're doing stand-up. Smile, make yourself look as confident. Even if you're not confident, look confident. And then people will understand, and they'll warm to you. And once they've warmed to you, they're not then likely to go, oh, that was rubbish. We don't want to hear any of that. They'll go, all right, let's listen. Let's give it a little bit of time and let's see what this person has to say. And from that, you can go 5 minutes, 10 minutes. And as long as you've got people gripped in what you're saying, and as long as some validity to it, and it's funny, or it's gripping, or it's important, anybody can go anywhere with it. They can write a short story, they could write reams and reams of words, but as long as it makes sense and you're releasing that from yourself and it means something, I think people will always be interested.
With the confidence then, was there ever a time when you weren't so confident?
No, not really. It's never good, though. It's never good, because there are always times that you can get on a stage and somebody will shout something and you kind of think, I'm not happy with that, but remember, you're the one with the microphone. So if you've got the confidence to accept that, and the confidence maybe then to give it back, you're going to get the rest of the crowd on your side, because they're going to think that one person who's not being so nice to you is a bit of a muppet. And they'll go, yeah, well done what you said there. He's a muppet. Yeah. And all of a sudden you just make people want you as well as everybody not want them. And it happens in many situations. It even happens in meetings. When you have meetings at work, or there's always one person that thinks their opinion is more important or more valid than everybody else's. And you just have to deal with it in the best way you can. But with a microphone, you can, and in the right environment, got to say that. Don't try that at work. In the right environment, you can make that a horrible, nasty bully, for that's what they really are, shrink to that size.
Mm-hmm. And I've spoken about this on my channel before, actually, that you do get those people who don't like to see other people doing well. And in essence, if you're getting up on the stage, you are doing well because, like you just said, you're having the confidence, and that's what they don't like. So I think anyone watching this, that's something what they perhaps need to remember as well.
Yeah, very much so. But there's always somebody. I mean, everybody can have confidence or look confident, but it doesn't mean that they are particularly confident. But they can just do what they do. I mean, there's loads and loads of stories of very, very famous people that would actually be physically sick before they would get on a stage. But as soon as they get on the stage, they were fine. And it's not just actors and actresses and stand-ups and singers. It happens on track and field as well, and sports personalities that feel particularly anxious and particularly caught up in the moment before they go and start something. As soon as the firing gun goes, or as soon as that first clap comes in, they're off. So just remember, treat people with a bit of respect is what I'd say there.
Yes, I agree. Now, moving on to you. You also present on Corby Radio.
I do.
How did that all come about? Because that's a bit different from poetry.
It is. How did I get into radio? Oh, there's a story. So I was in a band. I did some stand-up poetry. Somebody then from KCBC, that's a very old radio station in Kettering, said, well, if you think you can stand on a stage with a microphone and talk about stuff, can you talk about football? Now, I've always been involved in football in some way or another. Always used to play it, used to go watching it. And because they had nobody, because it was KCBC, which was Kettering Corby Broadcasting Company, that they wanted somebody who was going to watch football at Corby Town. So I would watch games of football at Corby Town, and I'd phone up the station and tell them what happened, and they were happy with that. From that moved on to a more studio-based thing. Always been involved with music, always liked music, and therefore when Corby Radio came along, I ended up with the indie and alternative show. For that is the music which I particularly prefer. If it's got a guitar, that's a good thing. I'm not a big fan of keyboards, though they have their uses. But yeah, give me a loud, nasty guitar going through several effects pedals, and that's the kind of noise I like.
So how do you find it then? Because if you're like talking to people with your poems, and then all of a sudden you're on a radio, you've got no one talking back to you. How do you get on with that? How do you get on with that change?
It's a great question, and a great example of what happens. I think radio's a very, very strange beast. You have to be able to do things very quickly, because you've got certain things happen very quickly, and you've got an infinite amount of time to make them sound as if you're in complete control. It is very much like that swan on top of the water. But I don't know. I find it. I always think I'm speaking to maybe one or two people whenever I'm on the radio. I do tend to go off at a tangent. One minute I can be talking about a great piece of music from a brand new artist that sounds really, really good, and then all of a sudden I'm talking about something that's happened in the street because I'm looking out of a window. And yeah, I'd like to think people tune in for that randomness as well as the great music that I play. It is weird. I do have an awful lot of help and respect from the people who helped me put my show together, because the theme goes out. There's generally it's a 2-hour show on a Tuesday night, 8 till 10, Corby Radio 96.3, the voice of Corby. And it goes out. It goes out. And the first hour is themed. Now, the theme goes out the night before on a Monday. It goes out on my Facebook page, Chuck Middleton. And from there, lots of people write back and say, well, if that's the theme, can you play this kind of record, or this artist or band? And I then self-produce it the night before, so it's ready. So when I get in the studio, it's easy to just hit buttons and let the music play on. But it does mean I get to play some A, quite adventurous music, and B, things that are not particularly well known and you wouldn't generally hear on a local radio, let alone national radio. So and I'm always very happy to play local bands as well. In fact, we're doing this on a Wednesday, ladies and gentlemen. And last night on my show, I played a local band called Family of Noise. Brand new single, brand new track they just produced, played it on the radio. They like that. They're listed. The people who can't get to see them at the moment get to hear it. And it's nice. I think it's a great bit of kudos for the band. And I've been doing this for a long time. In fact, since lockdown, I was wearing, because we can't have live bands, we can't have people in the studio, I was wearing a local band T-shirt every week for 9 months. I'm surprised I have that many local band T-shirts, but I do.
Not the same one.
Some were given to me, some were offered up, some I bought, because you've got to support local music and local artists. So I think that's all worthwhile. And as I say, I've done so much poetry on stage with bands, supporting them and bringing them on and being the MC and just generally in the compo. I know lots of people locally, Corby, Kettering, Wellingborough, Northampton, anywhere that have been playing live around the clubs and pubs and all those kind of bars for years. So there's a lot out there, but yeah, it's a great thing to do. And obviously it's a great community spirit as well. And I think that's a good thing, because everybody needs that. And once we get back to nice warm days and long evenings, we can go out and have gigs in I don't know, parks and football stadiums again and all that kind of gut stuff. So yeah, roll on next year, 2021, the year when it all went hopefully right.
Hopefully. Well, just quickly, you're getting all these plugs in. Do you want to quickly plug your Instagram and Twitter whilst we're there?
Cynically, you might think, oh, he's just got himself a YouTube channel like you, and yours is great. But yes, you can go to Chuck the Poet on YouTube and subscribe to that. Why not? If you follow me on Instagram, you can do. But if you hashtag Instagram, you will find all the poems there. They'll all just appear as Chuck the Poet. Hashtag Chuck the Poet. Chuck the Poet has his own Facebook page, so you can find that too, or the other kind of famous person or famous, he's not famous at all. The other person connected to Chuck the Poet would be Chuck Middleton, which is Chuck the Poet's real name. But yeah, if you need or would like to read more, obviously you can do that too. There's both books. Both books. They are still available from 3P Publishing, which is based in Corby. Try and keep these things local. Why not? And they've still got some copies there. Not many, though, I would have to say. And they're only £5 a throw, so it's quite good.
I'll get back to 1980s when you split up with the band. Did you ever think that you would be doing what you are today?
I think there would always be a case where I might be on a stage performing. I think I've been incredibly lucky because of the radio work, that also got me on Northants TV, which were a cable channel based in Northampton, which meant I did lots of things in pubs, karaoke challenges. I remember a great night in the Beehive in Kettering. That was a great night. There were loads of stuff there and loads of pubs in Kettering and Corby and Northampton and Wellingborough. And that was a really good thing, but it didn't last so long. I think it was only on air for about 3 years, but it did take me up and get me involved with lots of things that have happened locally. And I rode Chitty Chitty Bang Bang at one of the steam events, and I rode up in a hot air balloon at Northampton Balloon Fest, and I rode in a racing car driven by Johnny, what's his name? Very famous race driver around Rockingham Motor Speedway before it was turned into a car park. And yeah, I've just been very, very lucky. But that then obviously brought me back to radio, because when Corby Radio was allowed and given a full-time license, and therefore now works 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, it means that I was in a good position to say, oh, I'd like a radio show, please. So I have been incredibly lucky, and I certainly appreciate that. So but there's opportunities out there, and if there's anybody that would think that sounds a really good job to do, they don't get paid for it, remember that, but if you are interested, contact these people, because nobody likes anybody more than somebody that's willing to put their own time into doing something. If it's free, you don't get much out of it, but it's a great thing to do. And if you do feel as if you want to be involved, contact Corby Radio or any other. If you would be given the chance to work in their hospital radio, it's not a bad place to start. So but yeah, there's lots of opportunities. You've got sometimes just got to find them. And if there's always football grounds as well, because I do commentate on local football still. I still cover Corby Radio or Corby Town for Corby Radio, and BBC Radio Northampton, which again is another string to your bow, because it's something you can do and you'd be called upon to do it. So it's an awfully good thing to do. But yeah, anybody needs help in maybe looking towards that, if they think that would be a great thing to be part of, be in contact with me. That's not a problem at all. I'll certainly help you in any which way I can.
Thank you very much for that, and it's lovely of you that you want to help others to achieve as well, so thank you very much. Finally, I have 10 very quick questions.
Oh, I'll sit up straight.
Right, are you ready?
Go for it.
Oh, I feel really harsh now. Okay. Radio or,
yes,
or poetry?
Poetry.
Okay, is that because you can express your feelings then?
Yeah, I can swear on a stage in a pub.
True. Okay, next one is talent contests or music?
Music. Talent contests are stressful.
Are they?
Yeah.
Okay. Right, one of your pet hates?
People that don't indicate, especially at roundabouts. Stop it!
Oh God.
Is that because you're thinking exactly the same thing? You've seen them, you've been in front of them, they've gone, oh, I'll be in the third lane, right? Oh, but all of a sudden I want to go left. I'm an idiot. Just beat your horn at me and flash your lights. Yeah,
very true. Okay, next one. Most memorable moment?
Oh, that's one you'd have to think about. I I got to discuss a football match at the old Wembley. That was quite fun. I have, as I say, I have travelled the world. I have been actually around the world. So I've been to Machu Picchu. I've been to Angkor Wat in Cambodia. So it's probably being in a position where I can travel and learn lots from being abroad. But I would say any chance of travel, and I'm quite happy to do it. One of my poems I even rewrote in Spanish.
Oh, really?
It's only 3 words. I wouldn't worry about it. It's.
I was going to be impressed for a minute. Okay. Next question. Favorite country you've ever travelled to?
That is difficult. Oddly enough, I do think about this an awful lot, and I've been to 45 countries. So it's not, if you consider there's 196, it's not an awful lot. But I've been to Italy, 3 different places in Italy, 4 different places in Italy, and I like Italy. I think it's a nice place to be. I really liked, and this is a weird one, I really liked Malta.
Okay, I've never been.
So it's just, I really liked it. But when you go to, you see things that maybe you think, oh, we haven't got. If you go there with the attitude, oh, we haven't got that in the UK, or oh, if they did this like we do in back home, that's the wrong attitude. Don't even think like that. But I think I've been to Thailand twice, mainland, not islands, but that was pretty cool. But I think of all the places that were nice and gentle and cool and calming, Laos in Southeast Asia. So it's the landlocked country between Vietnam, Cambodia, and Thailand. Little Laos. That's spelled Laos, I think. Wrong. Cool. I've got a poem about them. Laos. Yes, I was right. Good.
Okay, I might have to have a Google of that once we finish this interview and see what it's like. Next question.
Very verdant and green. Yes, nice. Go.
So next question, favourite musician?
Yeah, it was always going to be one, and it would have been Morrissey. But unfortunately, Morrissey has been saying so many, or has reportedly said so many silly things of late that you think of the music. And the Smiths, great. Early Morrissey, brilliant. Late Morrissey, oh, he's losing a bit. But if you then said to me, if that's under the banner musician, I'd say Morrissey. But if we're talking favourite band, I'd probably say Carter, the Unstoppable Sex Machine.
Okay. One poet that everyone should research after listening to this today. Can't be yourself.
Other than myself, I'd say John Hegley. Go and look some John Hegley up, because they're generally quite short and they're generally quite funny. Either that or John Cooper Clarke.
Okay. One inspiration.
Two.
There is 2. I'll let you off. One inspirational tip.
Indicate. No. An inspirational tip. The only way to become confident is to be confident. Even if you don't feel it, be it. People will think you are.
Like it. Favourite colour?
Purple.
Good choice. And one positive thing you'd like to share today?
Well, I think this kind of communication is brilliant. And if we wouldn't have had it, we certainly never had it 10 years ago. I think if it wasn't for COVID and lockdown, the use of this kind of way of communicating wouldn't have maybe come on as quickly. It would have still been there, and some people would have used it. But I think because we were all so desperate to connect with people back in April, May, June, that it brought kind of Zoom and Teams and Google Connect, or whatever it's called, together more. And I think, and House Party, together more, and helps people. And I think it is a huge help to people that don't want to go out. There's people out there that are scared to go out. There's people that just think, I'm not even going to bother. you know, and I think if we can take any positivity out of what's happened over the last 9 months, it's little things like this, and people getting to learn more about how to use technology and how to use it and make them feel better about what's going on. So I think that if there's any positivity out there, I think that's maybe something we could all want to take a bit more of a handle on and do more with.
Thank you very much for that positivity. Thank you very much for your time today. You've been brilliant.
Thank you.
It was great to hear Chuck's story, and it just goes to show that in life sometimes the path that we're on isn't necessarily the path we end up taking. For example, Chuck was in a band, he was enjoying his life. When that band split, he decided to invent Chuck the Poet, which he has enjoyed ever since, and ended up leading him to presenting on the radio. You can follow Chuck at the links here. If you have someone that inspires you, comment below. I'm always so interested to find out who others find inspirational. Likewise, if you have an inspirational story to tell, comment below, drop me a message on social media, or even drop me an email. On Sunday at 4 o'clock, I'll be speaking with this year's Britain's Got Talent contestant, Damien O'Brien. If you've enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, comment below, let me know what you think, and don't forget to hit subscribe. See you all on Sunday. See you later.